Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Culture with head coach Jim Flannery. I'd like to thank everyone for watching us on YouTube and hopefully advise your friends to check us out. We'll be doing this throughout the next month while the Blue Jays take their trip through March. And Flan, we'll probably have to do a few of these from the road. We've pushed the date back here, and instead of coming out on Friday, we'll come out on Tuesday because we had our final home game of the year. And just talk about, first and foremost, for that final home game, the choice to have senior day about 2 weeks ago and do it against Georgetown instead of choosing to do it last night against Villanova. And then the emotions. I know you had people ask you similar questions during the post-game interviews, but just talk about the emotions of going through senior day and then another last home game.
Yeah, well, for me personally, I thought last night was much easier having gone through senior day, a couple weeks ago against Georgetown. I think the lateness of the game probably had my emotions more muted too, because it's just to play. I thought during the day even, we played mostly 6 o'clock games at home on if they are a night game. So 7:30, 7:40, whatever time we tipped off seemed kind of late. But yeah, we decided to have the Georgetown game be the senior day ceremony. Primarily, we put it in the hands of the players and said, what do you guys want? Because obviously with a Sunday night tip, if there are people who can't make it from your family, your friend group, it's about what you guys would want. And so they thought about a while and landed on trying to do it on that Georgetown Saturday afternoon game, which I thought made sense because, again, we have quite a few we have that group from Minnesota, and I just think they thought, okay, maybe mom and dad are going to make it down for Sunday night because they're going to do whatever they can, but like grandma and grandpa, aunt and uncle, high school friends who maybe wanted to come down and watch him. I know Molly had like 15 or 16 people come down for the Georgetown game, so that's kind of why we did it, is just because of the lateness of the game. Last night, if we'd played a 1 o'clock game, I think that would have been our senior day.
One moment that will resonate for me and even was a little emotional for me to watch was the end of the game. You had the opportunity to call a timeout, hug each one of the seniors that was on the court, and I can't recall. I know in the post game they said that it was the 5 original. So was it in fact Jamie, Molly, Mallory, Morgan, and Lauren on the floor at that time?
Yeah, it was. I think I had Kennedy in for Jamie, and Mal was coming in and out there for a little bit, but I was hoping that we could push that thing to about 15 at the 3-minute mark and maybe get him out a little bit earlier, but we didn't. But yeah, we had gotten Jamie back in, and then when Morgan hit the 3, I think to push it to 13, that made it easy to get them all, like you said, all 5 of those guys off the floor at the same time. And just a neat way to end it. I think Mal hit a 3 toward the end of the Georgetown game and was able to sub that group out. So they had kind of 2 senior nights, which is even more special, I guess.
Was that planned, something that you'd wanted to do? Obviously, the flow of the game, if it's a 2-point game, you're not going to do that. But was it something you had planned or just something spur of the moment?
I think it's always in your head when you go into senior day. How do you want that last few minutes to play out for your seniors if the circumstances allow you to orchestrate kind of, so you're waiting for that moment when the game is in hand, but you don't want to have to put them back in if you take them out with 5 minutes to go and the game gets super tight, but you don't necessarily have control over what that's going to look like at the end. But yeah, I think as a head coach, it's something that I'm conscious of going into the game. Okay, how am I going to? But now that I've done it a little bit more, I probably spend less time in front of it thinking about it because I've done it enough that it's a little more instinctual. There's still things that you're like, okay, well, last night, for instance, what do you do with Brooke and Sydney? And I chose to put them on the floor for the end because we have 7 of them. So
right. Let's move to the Big East tournament. Finishing the season, first 16-2. I think we don't take time enough to assess and really take pride in a record. That's the best record we've had in the Big East since joining it. It's tied 2016-17 when we shared the title with DePaul. But 16-2 in the Big East Conference is a strong accomplishment. It's also the ties for the best record in conference history, not just in the Big East. So what can you say about going through the schedule? Because one thing about this team that has just always impressed me, there's never been a game that you were supposed to win that you didn't. There have been 5 losses this year, 4 of them to ranked teams, 1 to a tough road loss at South Dakota State. But if you go through and say this is a game by the odds, we're favored by 10, whatever it is, that we were supposed to win, and usually you drop 1 or 2 of those throughout a season.
Yeah, I think that's a testament to the maturity of the team, the connectedness of the team. And when you say maturity, it's the experience level, it's the length of time they've played together, it's the ability to, hey, not everybody, Lauren's going to have tough nights, Morgan's going to have tough nights, even as good as they are. So how do they get picked up, and who's picking them up? And just, I just think having so much experience matters, but also, like I said, the connectedness on and off the court. It's hard. One of the things that people probably don't talk about in terms of making it difficult to win on the road is sometimes teams don't get along great. And you travel with us. We spend a lot. You spend a lot of time together in the hotel, and whether it's in a meal room or if you go out to a restaurant, but in your shoot-arounds. And I just think at some point, if a team doesn't really truly like to be around one another, you're going to drop a road game or two that you probably should win based on all those other things. And then the other thing is sometimes the preparation is stacked against you. I mean, you might have one. Last night we had one less day prep than Villanova, and that's the case sometimes when you go on the road and you're playing a team that's been sitting at home and has maybe an extra day of rest, or you have a travel difficulty. You've whether you're chartering or not, you can charter and still have your schedule changed at the last minute, or we can't get out.
Right.
So those sorts of things also contribute. I think that being a remarkable thing is that we've pretty much won every game we were supposed to win, because there's always, not always, but there's oftentimes something that's working against you, especially when you go on the road.
Now let's move a little bit towards the Big East tournament. A 2 seed for the second consecutive year, and as always happens, we're matched up with Seton Hall in a future bracket. But the work to do before that, you're going to play either Providence or Georgetown, and Providence gave you a good game at their place and an even better game here at DJ Sokol Arena. And Georgetown's the team that eliminated you last year in the Big East tournament. So what are your thoughts on playing one of those 2 teams and potentially meeting Seton Hall in the semifinals?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a coach, you look at every team in the league and think, well, geez, they're pretty good. On their best day, they're pretty good, like you said. And Providence, I thought at our place, Providence played really well, and we really had to fight to win. That game went down to the last 3 minutes, and even at their place, we trailed by 3. We kind of controlled the second half, but Providence is a deep team. I mean, I think they're probably deeper than Georgetown, but Georgetown has, their top 3-4 players are really good. So, and coincidentally, those 2 just played this weekend. So it's a rematch of the game that they played Saturday, I think, Saturday at Georgetown. So,
yeah.
And then, like you said, we just have a history with Seton Hall. There's this will be 5 years in a row, I think, if we play them, and we had some great battles with them, and I just kind of knew going into that last weekend that they were somehow going to get the 3rd seed. But again, we got first things first. I mean, we'll be able to watch Georgetown and Providence play on Friday afternoon, and then get ready and play Saturday early evening. I thought, we had played the 9:30 game a couple years in a row, and I thought that was a big disadvantage to get back to your hotel room about 12:30. But last year we got to play the 7 o'clock game, get off the floor earlier, and we still lost the next night. So, but either way, it's a little quicker turnaround because you play a 5 o'clock game on that semifinal. So,
Yep.
but I do like the 7 o'clock game time quite a bit better than the 9:30. I just think it gives you a better chance for success that next day if you can find a way to win on Saturday.
This episode might be a little bit longer. We're going to go a little bit into what I'd like you to do is walk us through what recruiting takes to bring a kid in. Let's say I'm not going to pick a former player. I'm going to say you're recruiting Jane Flannery, not a relation to you, but just happen to have the last name.
Yeah.
She is an 8th grade star at Omaha West Side, and you're wanting to recruit her. When does that process start? Understanding they don't commit until November of their junior year. So walk us through. Do you go watch? Like I was at my daughter's game. I'm hoping you didn't have anybody out scouting at first grade basketball.
No, we didn't.
But I was texting Marissa Murphy, formerly Marissa Janning, and I was like, I wouldn't be shocked if there's a coach somewhere scouting a first grade game. So that's where this question came from. Where does scouting begin? How young, and how can you walk us through the process?
Yeah, I would say 8th grade is probably. I mean, you might hear about a kid, but especially if she's the younger sister. Everybody always says the youngest sister is the best, or her younger sister is better, and sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not. But I'd say 8th grade is probably when you maybe start to hear about somebody in your geographic region. Going into 9th grade, kind of in that range, and you're right. We can't communicate. We can't reach out directly to them. So if let's say there's a 9th grader that at Westside, Jane Flannery, and we want her to get to know us, we would have to go through her high school coach or her club coach and say, hey, can you have Jane give me a call periodically? Or, like in October, you reach out and say, hey, can you have her give me a call? I think you got to be respectful. The younger they are, the more you got to be respectful that they're not going to want to be on the phone a lot with a college coach. I mean, an 8th or 9th grader isn't the same as a junior or senior in terms of, but I think just establishing some relationship, especially if it's somebody who's in your backyard and you feel like you really want to do that with. But, the reality is when you go out and you watch games, you might be there to watch a junior and a freshman impresses you, and so so now she's on your radar and you talk to the coach and you say, okay, give us a little bit about her, and then so that's how you end up. And then in the summer when you're watching tournaments, okay, maybe you're focusing mostly on sophomores and juniors because you've obviously made up your mind on seniors, but you're watching sophomores and juniors, and you have a game off and there's a freshman game that you're going to watch, or a younger kid that's either on your radar or not on your radar, but you're just there. So those sorts of things happen. And then, the closer they are, the more likely you are to get them on campus at a younger age. I mean, if it's somebody, we have, just because we have a lot of Minnesotans, it's not necessarily normal for us to have a 9th grader from Minnesota on campus, but they might come to our camp in June. That's kind of where we try to get them. They might be like, well, we're not going to come down and make a college visit when she's a freshman, but we'll come to your camp in the summer because that's a good opportunity. She's going to go to camps anyway. But yeah, I used to laugh at Kirsten and make fun of her because it seemed like in the business of recruiting 8th graders, and yet now we're in the position where it's gotten younger and younger for us. But the first time we can't call them until they finish their sophomore year. So June after their sophomore year is the first time we can reach out to them without having a coach be the intermediary.
Do you see at any point, and maybe you've already experienced it, do you see players having representation at some point? For baseball, players can have advisors. They can't have agents, but they can have advisors who often happen to be agents. Do you see that in women's basketball? Is it more through AAU coaches and high school coaches and connections that you made? And if it's not there, is that something that you see moving forward as we trudge through the NIL and revenue sharing and whatnot era that we're about to enter or have already entered?
Yeah, as far as do I think agents, I think there is a possibility that your very, very high-end, top-tier talent maybe would at some point have that. I don't think it's going to be, I don't know, I don't foresee it to be something that's going to be prevailing or pretty much the norm. But I do think that it could be in play at some time. But yeah, it's a different world that we're in, and just like you said, mostly the gatekeepers to current recruits are their high school coaches and their club coaches. And you might, if it's a local kid, you might ask you might have a relationship with a teacher or a coach of a different sport. Hey, what's so and so like? Or even somebody in your circle might reach out and say, hey, so and so's a great kid. But usually and you want to balance, because I think if you can get at least a couple people to talk about that kid, that's probably better than if it's one, because one opinion oftentimes is they're oftentimes promoting their player over, and you might get some of the story, but you might not get enough of the story. So, and then again, it's the kids that are maybe just a little bit higher in talent. You've got to be careful that you're not going to overlook a potential character issue. I think that's where a lot of coaches find that difficult to navigate. And we look at parents too. Like if you want some degree of parents who are encouraged and high energy are fine, but there's a line, a threshold kind of where a parent can maybe be so over the top, and we can see that. I've seen it. When I go to summer tournaments and you see some parents that you're like, wow, I don't know that I would want that, even though that kid's talented enough. I don't know that I would want that parent or have to deal with that parent. So those things matter.
Last question about recruiting. How many games do you think you watch for a player like Audrey Faber when the recruiting process? How many times do you think you watch them? I say that Flan is going from here out to the Iowa State Championships to see a current signed recruit, Ava Zedeker, correct?
Yep.
So how many times do you think that you see a player before they actually get on campus in games? Take a guess.
Yeah, for somebody like Ava, who's 2 hours away and we recruited for a while, we saw her play a lot this past summer. Not because we're just recruiting her, but on our club team, we're recruiting other kids and younger players, so that we're not just there to watch Ava, but she might have three to five teammates on her club team that are potentially somebody that we would recruit that are younger, same age, et cetera. So we've probably seen as a staff, we've probably seen 50 or more times, but that's probably rare too. It's, the Gessert twins who are at Millard West just because they're at Millard West, and we can only go to, we can't go to every game. You're limited to seven opportunities to watch within the, academic calendar year. But, so kids like that we've probably seen, 40, 50 times, but there's kids that you see no more than a handful of times for sure too. If they're, let's say it's a kid from Minnesota, again, because we recruit Minnesota a lot, but it's maybe not the top club, one of the top club programs in Minnesota. It's somebody who's a little, plays on maybe not quite as high profile a club program. It might be somebody we've seen, as little as 3 to 5 times.
All right, I like to end these with something a little bit fun and a question that I don't prep you for. So I'm going to give you a choice here of 2 questions. It's crossover season, which means that it's also baseball season, and it got me thinking about walk-up songs. I'm not going to ask you what your walk-up song would be. We might ask that at a different time, but either tell us your 3, 4, 5 warm-up songs that you want or that you would choose for yourself and the team, or tell us 3 or 4 current players that you think have a future as a college coach. You've had a lot, and we will delve into this at some point in the offseason because your coaching tree is continuing to grow. I mean, on the staff now, you've got Carly Berger, who played for you. You've got Jenny Vickers, who played for you. You've got Jalen Agnew-Bush, who's played for you. And you've got a number of college head coaches who started their career either as a player for you or as an assistant coach. Some incredibly successful, which I count Tanya as part of your coaching tree. Probably a little bit of a stretch there, but I'm going to count Tanya as part of your coaching tree. There are more. So tell me, which one of those questions do you want to answer today, and we'll delve into the other one another time.
Oh, let's talk about my songs.
All right.
Glenn. I mean,
all right, Plan. Let's hear what are some of the warm-up songs that you would pick, and it has to be relevant to you. It can't be Kendrick Lamar.
oh, okay, yeah. Well, I mean, for sure, Pump It Up, Glenn. I mean, we played that at. We have an Alexa right off our dining room area, and I don't know. Somehow I had just heard it, so as we were sitting down for dinner a few weeks ago, I had Alexa play Pump It Up, and we were astounded by how few lyrics there are. It's just basically but anyway, that would be on there. I like Mr. Brightside. I think that's kind of that's kind of the new Sweet Caroline. You know, it's kind of the new age, but as a fan of that kind of era, that would definitely be on my list. I'd have to say Dancing with Myself, Billy Idol.
Okay.
Just because you've seen me dancing with myself a lot.
I do, and so do the players.
Dancing and hoops go together. So those are a few.
So what I'd like to see, Carly Berger, who does the music for everything and brings a speaker everywhere. Carly, can we get 1 or 2 of Flan's songs into the warm-up mix next year? We're not going to mess with this year, but next year, can we get 1 or 2 of Flan's songs in your warm-up mix? All right, Coach. Well, next time we talk, it will be in prep for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
First of all, good luck at the Big East tournament, and hopefully we get another opportunity at Connecticut in the finals, but we got to get there first. So thank you to everyone for tuning in for Behind the Culture with head coach Jim Flannery.